my glasses. Where's the clicker? This is another Mary Walsh thing. She's always looking for the Jeasley clicker. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay.
Here you go.
Here we go. Thanks, Daryl. Okay, I don't think I need my glasses now. So, Susan said Toronto has lots of money. Fogo Island has no money. So I'm trying to figure out how to get a little bit of a tilt to the east. Oh, no. Oh, Susan, this is going to be good for you, too. Actually, I have a friend who works, she has all of her philanthropic work. I haven't figured out what philanthropy means yet. It's a whole new thing. But her work is all about homelessness in urban areas. So anyway, she figured out, she says, actually, Zita, you are working on homelessness in urban areas. That's what you're doing. So every time I say Fogo Island, in the next little while, you can substitute any other rural community that you like. It's the same thing. And I think one of the things that makes us Canadians is if you scratch the skin of any Canadian, you're going to find a rural place that makes their heart beat a little bit faster. And to the point of the person who was on the panel with me, whose name I can't remember, because I'm 55, and that's relevant, me being 55, that rural place might not be in Canada. But I can tell you, wherever those rural places are, they're in big trouble. And, you know, Joni Mitchell, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. We are going through such a huge disintegration of communities, of rural communities across the world. So substitute your favorite rural place when I say Fogo Island. And so let's get back to this 55. So I'm 55 years old. Because of where I was born and raised, I was effectively raised in the 19th century. No, this is really true. I grew up without any access to the mainland, no running water, no electricity. My parents couldn't read and write. And we made a living by fishing. And we went out in little boats, not much bigger than this desk, brought back enough fish to eat that you needed now and enough for the winter. Northeast coast of Newfoundland, we get some fearsome winters. We never caught more than that, maybe because we didn't feel we needed any more than that. You just needed enough to get through till next spring. And this way of living carried on for 400 years. I'm an 8th generation Fogo Islander. And then, so that was the 19th century way. And I mean, I know I probably sound nostalgic about it, and as I was saying to someone, it was a remarkable way to grow up. Very tight communities. I don't think we knew the word charity or philanthropy, but everybody kind of helped each other. It just happened, and we certainly didn't measure it. And and then something happened. In the 1950s, the first factory dragger was invented in Scotland. I don't know why the Scots were first to that bat. It took 30 years to bring the cod to the brink of extinction. 30 years, that was it. We were suddenly in the 20th century. And so the 20th century, we have seen across the planet, huge destruction of sacred assets in the pursuit of more money. And so this caused a huge crisis on Fogo Island and other places. I was one of those people who left a rural place and came to a bigger place, and so my career was outside. So now we're in the 21st century and I'm back home. So I was raised in the 19th century. I saw what happened in the 20th, and I think in the 21st century we can do some things that are a little bit like the 19th century in some ways that will make a difference to communities. But I think unless we can work at that community level, and I'm going to make a big pitch for place, all of the problems we're trying to solve, whether they're about addictions or whether they're about homelessness, are just going to get worse and worse. So that's the beginning. Diane said if I press, oh, here we go. So I think we live in a time that we're destroying place. The very idea of place is disappearing. I mean, never mind, the mass migration into urban areas. There's a mass migration into cyberspace. So the thing I think we need to hold on to more than anything as human beings is place, the natural world. And so the place that I'm from is up there on the northeast coast of Newfoundland, and there it is, that lovely little dot. It's a world unto itself. I mean, islands are special places anyway, because they're places that dreams really outlive time. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of a tour of it. It's one of the four corners of the flat Earth, and if you don't think the Earth is flat, we should talk about that after. Everything on Fogo Island is about this fish. There's a lovely book written by a New Yorker, of all things. Took a New Yorker to write a book about cod. It's called Cod, and the tagline is "The Humble Fish That Changed the World." Absolutely, no matter what you do for a living, you should read that book. So everything about a Fogo Islander, you can figure out from a codfish. If I'm joking with you, I'll say, oh, I'm just codding you. It's in our language, it's in our songs. It's the most important thing. And so this is just a little bit of a tour. If you die, which you probably will, if you go to heaven, there are going to be blue flag irises in heaven. Those are the summer flowers of Fogo Island. All of those fences were built by the Irish. I come from English and Irish descent. The English couldn't build fences to save their lives. And so we grew up this way. We grew up feral, and kids are better when they're feral. Actually, I love this picture because when most people see this picture, they think, oh, look at a whale. Fogo Islanders look at this picture and go, oh, what a great picture, round head. It's right there behind the whale's tail. Because round head is such an important point of navigation. This is in the spring when half of Greenland breaks off and comes down on top of us. It looks like that now. And of course, it's in Iceberg Alley. Now there it is, the most important fish. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a journey. The built heritage of Outport, Newfoundland is all about catching fish. So all these buildings you see have to do with how you bring your fish in, how you salt it, how you cure it, how you dry it. So that little building there is about 250 years old. It has survived a huge number of Atlantic storms. And if you know anything about Fogo Island, you know we've led with design and architecture. So when the architect came to work on the project, he had a very simple design brief, which was, you have to take 400 years of lived experience and express it in a contemporary building. So you can get over yourself right now, because it's not about you. And I mean, he got over himself pretty easily. He spent a very long time studying this building. And so there's nothing in these new structures that he didn't learn from that. You know, there's another great book by another Canadian, Wade Davis. And he was the Massey lecturer a few years ago, The Wayfinders, Why Ancient Wisdom Matters in the Modern World. Another one you must read. So we go on. There they are. The cod are coming back. I wish I had time to tell the full story of the cod, but they're making a really great comeback. This is the kind of houses. I grew up in a house like this. Usually they're about 800 square feet. There's a man on Change Islands, the sister island, who said, any man can build a house. To which most young people think, really? Then he says, not any man can build a boat. And if you can build a boat, you can build anything. And that has really inspired us in the project for how we've done things. So look at this lovely thing. It's called a punt. It's built without any steaming. They just go out and find the trees in that shape. And this little one, these kinds of boats are the workhorse of the cod fishery. We started a punt race as a way to save the punts, because now they have a new relevance to use for sport. And everybody, I mean, how can you get through life without one of those? And I could sell you one of these today. Only $2,500. So this man here, his name is Jim Edwards, he goes out and gets the wood. Now, he got that wood to build a boat and to build a chair. You have to know when to cut the wood. You have to know how to cut the wood. You have to know how long to let it dry. So that's the shape of his boat. This man is gone, but you see all that bending? They cut the wood so that it bends properly. No steaming. The knowledge to do this is phenomenal. And then you have to win the race. So I'm going to go back in time a little bit. This picture is from around 1920. Cod were this big. And I love this photograph because it shows cod as members of the family. And I mean, what better thing should we be respecting than a codfish? And so this is the way we fish. These are these little boats. And actually, that's quite a large one. This would have been a family, and so they're trapping here. So depending on the time of year, you might be jigging, you might be trapping. This is what went on for 400 years. And Newfoundlanders are great coastal navigators because we always fished within sight of the coast. We're really terrible offshore. Then this happened. And as I said, it took 30 years. There you go. The landings went up, and the biomass went down. So what we have going on here has gone on in every resource sector, everywhere in the world. We industrialize the extraction, and when it's all gone, we move on. And then we look at the bunch of Newfoundlanders and say, what a lazy bunch of people, why don't they move to Gander and get a job at Tim Hortons? Like, and if we keep like strip mining places and moving on, we're all going to live in one big city eventually. And what about the cod? What are we going to eat? It doesn't, you can't keep moving. I have a brother who lives at Yonge and Eglinton, and I keep telling him, his name is Tony, whatever happens on Fogo Island is going to happen at Yonge and Eglinton sooner or later. So we might as well solve it on Fogo Island. And so Joey Smallwood was the Premier of Newfoundland, who brought Newfoundland into Confederation. He considered himself a father of Confederation. He's not a popular fellow on Fogo Island. Anyway, he never believed in the fishery. And so after the collapse, he basically said, like, you have to get real jobs. Move to Grand Falls. We have a paper mill in Grand Falls. There's 2 jobs for every man in Grand Falls. Well, the paper mill in Grand Falls is closed because this kind of bringing people out of rural areas for employment is it's a 2-step process to unemployment. And because what people have lost is their autonomy. Now, a lot of people did leave. Fogo Island was not resettled, and that's a longer story and we don't have time to get into, but it had to do with the intervention of the university and the National Film Board of Canada. And this idea of academia and government institutions working together is a brilliant, you should Google the Fogo process. You'll learn more about community economic development by looking at what happened on Fogo Island back then, and we learned a lot. But the people who left, they would take their houses with them. You know, it's like a boat, it's just a different shape. It's just a little wooden structure. And so my own father was a fisherman, and he was too old to make the transition to other species when the cod collapsed. And he couldn't read and write, so he couldn't learn the technology. And so he basically, that was the end of his career, and he died a pretty broken-hearted person. And he said this. He said, you just remember, it wasn't the fish that let us down. And so when I left Fogo Island to go to university, I studied business because I wanted to figure out what the frig happened. I mean, we saw these massive draggers that you could see from Brimstone Head. It's like my mother used to say, they're bigger than the church. Like they're bigger than the Protestant church, which to a Catholic, that's like a huge thing. And so why did this, it still intrigues me. Business systems really intrigue me. So I figured out, studying business, it's like a cauliflower. Fogo Island is a tiny little floret. And it's joined, and it's a fractal, right? It repeats. And it's joined to all the other florets by this connective tissue, the stem. And when you really think about what happened with the fishery, what happened was the stem became too self-serving. And really the stem was business. Too much fish was caught in the pursuit of profit, not because somebody was hungry, but somebody wanted more profit. So let's catch more fish. And so what happens is, that little floret just died. Oh, another little floret died. How many little florets die before we say, wait a minute, maybe we need to think about the connective tissue. We need maybe perhaps to grow a different kind of connective tissue that's less self-serving. And so I used to work for a fellow in the fiber optics business. Every morning he would say, the most important thing is to keep the most important thing the most important thing. Which was helpful. And if we looked like we didn't know what the most important thing was, he'd say, well, then you should go straight home because you're going to do more damage than you're going to do good. And so for me, the most important thing is nature and culture. Because nature and culture are the 2 great garments of human life, of every human life. And business and technology are the 2 great tools of man that can serve nature and culture. And shame on us, because we have it exactly the wrong way around. And so, after this journey through the telecommunications world, I ended up with what I would really say is more than my fair share of money. Like more money than I needed to live a lifetime. Like, This is weird. And so, I don't tell many Newfoundland jokes, but I'll tell you this one. How can you tell the Newfoundlander in heaven? He's the one moaning and groaning because he wants to go home. We all want to go home. And so I went home, and in the beginning, we started a scholarship fund. Oh, when I say we, I'm talking about two of my brothers very active in the foundation with me. We started a scholarship fund, which we had in place for several years, and a really good one, like lots of money for 2 kids to go to university. And we would have all these reviews. So in one of these reviews, a woman stood up and she said, you realize what you're doing? You're just paying our kids to leave. She said, can't you do something to make jobs? And that really was kind of the beginning of, what are we doing? Just to feel good? And when you realize there's a problem, and you realize that you can do something about it, not doing something about it is doing something. So you have to do something. You have to. And so how many other Newfoundlanders or how many other Fogo Islanders ended up with a bag of money? There weren't a lot of us. There are a few, and I'm after them, too, to come home. But I had to. I don't think this was a choice. And so when my brothers and I started thinking about what to do, well, you could have done the simplest thing. Divide up the money you don't need and hand out of every... we were only 2,800 people on Fogo Island. We could have gone around to every door and have a little bag of money. One of my brothers thought, well, it seems like lots of communities are building water slides. Maybe we should build a water slide. It seems to be good for the economy. And so, anyway, we decided not to do either one of those things, but we knew when we started, this is a lifelong journey. And when I was not kidding about, the dead people watching. I know they're watching, and sometimes they speak. So we decided that I'm going to go through quickly the things that were the foundation of what we built on. First of all, the intrinsic power of the place itself. Place has inherent value. It's the most important thing. Ways of knowing. It's one thing to lose knowledge. It's another thing to lose a whole way of knowing. People who make a living on the North Atlantic have a way of knowing that nobody else has. We need to hold on to that because it has value for all humanity. And social entrepreneurship, I'll talk more about this. We'll come to it. Well, maybe we're already at it. People call it social enterprise, whether you call it public capitalism, progressive philanthropy, but the point of it is, it's business. That's the most important word. It's business that serves social ends. Charity itself is not sustainable. Even Bill Gates' money is going to run out, and mine's going to run out a lot faster than his. And so for anybody I was just talking to someone here it was Janet, I think, about every year you got to get up and start begging for more money. We've got to figure out how to put a business model at the heart of every charitable undertaking, somehow. And so, there's a lovely picture. The point of this is, so I came out of the pure profit world. I've spent some time in the not-for-profit world, and I love being exactly in the middle. And I think, in my lifetime, what I would love to see, and I think this could happen, there won't be 2 circles. Why can't every organization be a not-just-for-profit organization? And one of the ways we're going to compete with each other is what happens to the spoils. How much do I put in my pocket, and how much do I set free in a community or in the world? We need a few laws to change. We'll invite CRA to come to the table first, but this is possible. Art as a way of knowing. So I think there are very few ways of knowing left in the world that come from original sources. Art is one of them. Artists know things and know it in ways the rest of us can't know. So we need to invest in art. So you'll see this in our projects a lot. And the power of design. We have been building little wooden houses on Fogo Island for 400 years. Nobody paid any attention. We built a little tiny studio, the same wood, the same guys building it. All of a sudden, Apple has appropriated one of our images to launch the iPhone 5. It's the power of design. And for rural places, it's not about we don't, as rural people, we're contemporary rural people. We don't want to live in the 19th century. So why can't rural communities have access to great design? Rex Murphy said at the time of the cod moratorium, if Outport Newfoundland is going to survive, we have to get really good at finding new ways with old things. And that has been something that's inspired the project. I actually think we now need to go with old ways with new things. Might not. And a rhythm of opposites. This came up in somebody's talk. Life is a rhythm of opposites. Everything is bound up with its opposite. And in the world of philanthropy, for example, being, somebody was talking about this, being and becoming. And you have to balance between the two of them. And so, how do you say, I am not going to help the person standing in front of me who's starving to death because I'm working on root causes? But that kind of discipline you sort of have to have, or you need to get comfortable living in that rhythm. And I think that is a really, really hard thing to do in this sector. And of course, for Fogo Island, if we're going to survive, we have to be relevant in the world. And I think about community, I think about Canada, I think about the world as all little patches. Every little community is a beautiful patch. And everybody loves their little patch. But the thing is, one little patch is not enough to keep you warm all winter. You need a quilt. So it's about how do we knit the country together, or how do we knit the planet together in a way that's good for all these communities. So what we're doing is we started something called Fogo Island Arts. That's a straight-up not-for-profit. So Shorefast itself is a federally registered charity. Fogo Island Arts is a not-for-profit funded by the foundation. We have a micro-lending fund, which is copied straight from the Grameen Bank. And we're building an inn. I keep saying that. We have an inn. It's finished. It seems like it was never going to get finished. But the inn is the economic engine. It's a very special economic engine, and it belongs to the charity. And the way we can do that, because charities can't really run businesses very elegantly, we do it in a business trust. So when the inn reaches surpluses, and God willing that will be soon, it's going to help when you all come out and stay. Then that rolls into the charity, and that stays in the community. So we keep, trying to bring money to the island, hold on to it. So I know you all know this about the different types of capital, and of course when you say capital, most people think it's economic capital. Certainly in my previous life, that's what we thought it meant. Another great book called Sacred Economics by a guy named Eisenstein talks about sacred capital being things like cultural capital, social capital, natural capital, and please can we stop destroying and cannibalizing sacred capital to create financial capital? I think this is from the UN, the 3 pillars of sustainability. We can all play with these balls in different ways, and which ball is more important and how do they get rearranged is we can debate. So these were the things in the back of our minds when we started the project. So we started building artist studios. This is the first one, and that was the second, and the third, and the fourth. So these are workspaces for artists. This is the image that Apple took from a magazine and used in their video. And if anybody has any connections with Apple, we've written them 10,000 letters to say, we're a little charity out on an island off the coast of Newfoundland. Can't we have a free iPhone at least? So anyway, we're still waiting. It's quite legal what they did. Moral is another question. And the tower. So now you look at these buildings. This really, architecture can tell a story. Architecture can hold on to the past and weave the future with it. So if you're visiting Fogo Island, you should be able to see the 19th century and the 21st century. And they shouldn't look like they're not related. So it's architecture for a purpose. And we have a big herd of caribou on the island, and a big test was, will the caribou like these studios? And actually, they don't really like this one. We should have maybe done a test before. So now we'll talk about the inn. The inn was just, in a way, Newfoundlanders are innately, genetically hospitable people. And I think it's because we're islanders. But we've never had, certainly on Fogo Island, a really great inn. And so we thought, well, let's build an inn. People have somewhere to stay. As a local guy, he says, yeah, the inn, he said, is kind of like a home for people who are temporarily without a home. And we thought, well, this is the opportunity to take what we know, bring together the artisans that are on the island, and let's try and create not just an economy of the inn, but an economy of making the things that go into the inn. We set some rules at the beginning. One rule was nothing would go into this inn that came from a place that didn't have basic labor laws and basic environmental protection laws. And we only failed in one place, and that's in the telephone. We're working on a wooden phone. And wherever we could, we wanted to make things on the island. So I'll give you a sense of that journey. Another brilliant fellow, a British economist named Tim Jackson, wrote many books, but he wrote one called Prosperity Without Growth. And I love this. Avoiding the scourge of unemployment may have less to do with chasing after growth and more to do with building an economy of care, craft, and culture. And that's what we tried to do in the way we did the inn. I don't know who said this, but we are suffering from a plague of sameness. And I keep saying it's not that Fogo Island is special, it's that it is specific. And it's that specificity that brings us joy. And so when you get inside the inn, every object that you see was created in a collaboration. We've been building furniture since we've been on Fogo Island. You can't take a chair from the 19th century and put a 21st century bum on it. It just doesn't work. And we thought, we're not professional designers. So we invited a whole bunch of professional designers to come from away, various places around the world, to work with the local boat builders and textile people to come up with new objects for the inn. So this is them. And this is a very typical meeting. Fogo Island has its own sense of color. So all of these objects were made on the island, and now we're on the verge of launching a business to sell these objects outside of the island, obviously. But when people come, you cannot go home without wanting one of these quilts. It jumps into your suitcase. It's, we don't need to sell 1 million quilts for $2,800 for 2,800 people to have a dignified living. But we have to sell a few. And so this is about building the economy into the center of the thing. Even the wallpaper is designed for the inn and reflects something about the history of the place. And so my point in all of this is obviously the dining room. My point in all this, if you took every community, whether it's Estevan or Prince George or North Sydney and Nova Scotia, they all have something specific about them. And if we as Canadians, let's just take Canadians, made a conspiracy, urban people and rural people together, maybe we can't save every one of them, but we could save a lot of them. And that's the point. So with the dining room at the inn, obviously we were going to work with local things. Mercifully, God gave us 16 kinds of edible berries, so that was a pretty good start to a cuisine. And people think that Newfoundland is the rock, but you can actually grow an awful lot of things. When I left there in 1975, we were producing all of our own vegetables. We weren't eating arugula, but we were feeding ourselves. But now things have changed. Last year, a guy grew a melon. So we're expecting a big melon crop next year, maybe 2. But the point is you can do that. It's actually not that hard. And now we've, post-cod, we are crab fishermen and shrimp. So the fishery is still the main industry on Fogo Island. And we're really lucky because we still have a fishery. What we're trying to do is put another leg on the economy so it's a little bit more stable. And not every person who graduates from that high school wants to be a fishing person. So this amazed us, actually. So En route decided that we are the 3rd best restaurant in Canada. It's like, whoa. Yeah, we were pretty surprised. It was actually funny. It was a secret taster thing. We didn't know about that kind of thing. I guess it was on the city, but it doesn't happen on Fogo Island. But the waitress said, it was kind of weird. The guy ordered everything on the menu. yeah, that would be kind of weird. And we won this Global Vision Award from Travel and Leisure magazine, and we're proud of that as well. But of all the things that I'm personally really proud of all the things written about the inn, and much has been written, is this simple statement by Domus, the architecture magazine, that the inn is an act of human culture. And that's what it is. And hopefully, if it works, it'll be something that does add that other leg to the economy. So I want to come back to this chair. So you look at this chair. This is called a punt chair, designed by a young woman from Montreal. Those legs, that's the shape of the tree. So this chair is a vintage, right? This wood was collected in 2012, this chair made in 2013. If you think about an object like a chair, like there are chairs in here, What is our relationship with those objects? Do we know where it came from? Do we know where the money went that was spent on this chair? Whose pocket did it go in? Did it hurt someone? Did it help someone's life? When you know where things have come from, not only does it give you a sense of satisfaction about the economy of the thing, it actually fuels your soul, and it can bring you joy. And I can guarantee you, for anyone who owns a punt chair, this is not going to the landfill. 100 years from now, we'll be fixing them if they break. And this is the weird thing about consumerism, right? It's not that people love things, is that we don't love things. And so when someone says, well, what's it cost? I mean, I think there's a wonderful book. What is the price of cheap? And so it's getting back to that, putting meaning into things. And there's Elaine from Montreal. There's a lot of argument and a lot of fur was flying over how this got put together. But it was good and bonding work. So you can see there's not a lot of joy in a water slide. And if we had put up a water slide, this would have been blown off into the North Atlantic by now, which of course would have broken down all the little bits of plastic which the fish would have eaten, and then people would be eating the plastic and the fish, and then we need to build more hospitals. And so we just got to stop doing stuff like that. And yeah, this is a similar thought about we tried to build the philosophy and the values into the asset itself. So this inn is a community asset. And I don't see why communities can't own economic assets. I mean, there are cooperative models, there are lots of models for how this can work. And it's wonderful if a company wants to come to Fogo Island and start a business, although let's think about, are we going to have a rubber boot factory, and what are going to be the implications of that? And what happens when the rubber boot market is not so good and the merchant up and leaves, because we've had that happen on Fogo Island. So I think as a strategy for small communities, we need to be really thoughtful about the long horizon. And a lot has been said and written about sustainability. And I think this is as close to a definition as I've seen. In Newfoundland, such an acceptance of precariousness is a prerequisite to permanence. It's an active act of balancing all the time. I think we all would like life to be simpler than it really is, but it isn't. And I think living in the complexity and trying to come up with systems that work with the complexity, I think that's a part of the answer. So is Fogo Island a model for that place you were thinking every time I said Fogo Island, for Estevan, let's say? We'd like to be, because really, if we can make this work on Fogo Island and we're well on that path to doing it, that's a wonderful thing, but it's not enough. So how can we extract the learnings from that, which is what we think about a lot and we work on a lot, whether about logistics and distribution or business structure, or how do you build culture into the fabric of a business? The best people I've ever seen do that are the Spanish Basques. You cannot eat in Basque country, you can't have a nap, you can't do anything without being immersed in culture. I mean, it's brilliant. What's wrong with us? Why don't we do that? And business as a servant of place. We're doing all the right things, we just have to turn it on its head a little bit. And is this a form of contemporary philanthropy? I mean, it started with philanthropy. I should have said it because I wasn't clear about this. It started with the money that came out of the fiber optics world, and the Newfoundland government and the federal government contributed to the capital program to get it started. So it really is a kind of a private-public partnership. And when the provincial government said, are you going to do this anyway? So like, no way am I doing this anyway. This is the work of government. And I don't want to be out here in February and you're supposed to run the ferry and the ferry's not coming. And so, I think this is a kind of a good path for how rural places can kind of get a leg down. And I think we're at the end. So is it a requiem or is it an anthem for Fogo Island? It's not clear, right? You know, a requiem and an anthem are much the same. They're both a song. They're both slightly nostalgic. One is hopeful. The other one is a funeral. I don't think Fogo Island is about to have a funeral anytime soon. But we don't know. It's early days, and I really have this dream about how we roll out these ideas across this country and maybe others. So this is, I'll leave you with a poem from a New Zealand poet. And so I really believe that for Fogo Island, it's not about closing ourselves off. We have to hold on with all of our might to the gift of place that we have. At the same time, we have to reach out. And so that's why his poem is so beautiful. The art of walking upright is the art of using both feet. One is for holding on, and one is for reaching out. That's it. Thank you.